let's start. Me.
I'm leaving this in.
Yeah, classic. Right. Welcome, everybody, to the Distinct and Jovial podcast. My name is Jerry, and I'm here with my wonderful, lovely, legendary co-founder, Dom.
Hello, everybody.
See, Dom's nervous because I'm hosting this on again, and he doesn't know how this is going to pan out.
I don't know how this is going to pan out, but I'm just going to say that I've got my shoulder straps in, my seatbelt is on, and I'm ready for whatever roller coaster that Jerry is going to throw at me now.
Yeah, and the no smoking signs are on. You're strapped in. The emergency exits are located here,
here,
there. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us again. Today is Sunday, the 27th of October. So we are cutting it a bit fine. We will explain the reasons why that this has happened shortly.
It's only pressure on me to edit it.
Yeah, just you've got loads of time, Dom. The last time we recorded was in August.
Yes, we got the last Riverside / kind of remote podcast that we recorded was even longer than that. It was still in August, but it was August the 18th. Where we were with the wonderful chat Stevie T. And then we recorded the week or two later, 2 weeks later, 6 days later, sorry. So a week later on the 24th of August, which is when we did our in-person podcast. And then September and October vanished. So here we are, folks.
It's mad, isn't it, how quickly that time's gone, isn't it?
I don't really know what happened to October. October's disappeared. I cannot believe that on Friday it is November.
Was it Friday or Wednesday? You said Wednesday yesterday.
I said Wednesday on the phone, and I got it, and then I looked it up and I got it very wrong, but that's because I'm an idiot.
So you've got loads of time to edit this. What are you complaining about? It's fine. Right, so this is actually going to be a roller coaster. Before we start, have to do the disclaimer. It's always important to do the disclaimers. So, the views expressed on this podcast by Dom and I represent our views, solely our views, do not represent the views of anyone else or any organisation that we are associated with or work for, or indeed any organisation as a whole. There will be an organisation coming up in Room 101. So we will come to that shortly. But yes, this is the views expressed are just ours, no one else's. So there.
And as was pointed out by the old school crew, apparently people are born without belly buttons, so we cannot use the phrase "everybody has belly." Opinions are like belly buttons because everybody has one.
I had a feeling Naved was gonna.
Yeah, well,
he's kind of
like I mean, he's not wrong, right? Let's be totally honest. He's not wrong. I do actually like the fact that you probably could compare opinions to brains, because everybody does have a brain. And opinions like brains, some people are like, do you actually use yours in the right way? Some slight questioning here. I'll go into a little bit more on just general people, and you think, what are we doing? But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I suppose if you have to choose an organ that's sort of guaranteed, amongst everybody, brain.
Yeah, I would have said brain and heart are probably the two.
Yeah, but you can have an artificial heart.
You can have an artificial heart. Lungs, you can be probably artificial.
Yeah, you can.
I think you can remove one kidney and be pretty much fine. Yeah, major organs wise, yeah.
Stick to brain.
Major organs wise.
Thanks, Naved. Thanks for ruining. Thanks for that. Thanks for ruining what was a funny and great expression that we've been using for years, and now we can't use it anymore. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, so, Dom, we are going to start with Room 101, because you need to get this rant out the way and just do it. And I can't believe it's a variation of the same theme.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievably, it's not the Royal Mail, right?
Jeez.
It's not... But I have now found a company that is equal to the Royal Mail in terms of complete and utter fluff-ups.
Nice.
So I treated myself... So I'm going to put a little bit of context behind it around why I was nervous about this package. So I have officially ditched my Fitbit because I got fed up with the GPS failing and it not tracking my stats properly, blah, 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 etc., etc. And I've made the leap to a Garmin. Now, for those that do not know what Garmin is or their products, there's no subscription with it, but they're very expensive, like really, really expensive. And yeah, we're talking nearly 500 quid for like some of their products. So, exactly, right? So I've ordered a new watch, and I'm tracking the parcel. And I'm not going to mention the delivery company to begin with, but the delivery company said, Garmin sent me the notification it's going to be delivered on Tuesday. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Right, I've just got to wait in on Tuesday. Not ideal because normally I go to Taekwondo on those days, but fine. Gets to Tuesday, and they've actually given me a delivery slot. I'm thinking, brilliant, right? And okay, yeah, it's 3 to 5:30, but fine, right? Okay, I can crack on and do some stuff. Anyway, gets to like 6 o'clock, hasn't turned up, and I get a notification. Oh, we've had to delay it. It'll be tomorrow. Okay, fine. That's wonderful. Not ideal, but okay. Stuff happens. Come to the second day. They don't give me a delivery slot. They just say between the times of 8 a.m. and 5:30 p.m.
Oh.
Okay. Now, each time, their delivery tracker is going, it's out for delivery, right? This really important note. It's out for delivery. Anyway, gets to the second day, and I get the notification at 6 o'clock. I'm really sorry. It's going to be delayed to the next day. What is going on? So I phone this company up, and I go, what the heck? Right? In a slightly more polite way. Now, I didn't get to that point initially because I've usually pretty good at dealing with call center, automated phone call services, right? Because normally you think about it logically. You listen to what comes across on the call, and you then press the number and you go through. And if you don't know, you just keep pressing a number until you finally eventually speak to somebody. No word of a lie, they had so many options on the first set of pages, on the first kind of like section when you dive in, that it reads out 1 to 8 and then goes, and if none of these match your thing, please press 9 to hear the next set. And then it goes 1 to 8 again. You press 9, it goes 1 to 6. I was like, what? I can't do things. Anyway, it had voice recognition, and I got through to like sections, right? Because I started pressing the buttons to try and be like, where's my delivery? And then put in my parcel number, which it said was invalid, right? And I tried to put my so I could click on the email in like the Garmin had sent me, and it would take me to this company's page, and it would show me all the delivery and all the details. But if I copied and pasted that number and put it into their tracking website, it said it didn't exist. It didn't exist when I used it on the phone. Eventually, I got irate and I just shouted at my phone. And then my phone just went, putting you through to customer agent. And I was like, finally, right? That's what we wanted from the beginning. So I speak to this very unhelpful person. And I go, look, it's not your fault, but where's my parcel, right? What's going on? And she said, well, basically, there's a backlog at the place. So... actually, your parcel's just never left the facility.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And I'm like, well, why are you telling me it's out for delivery if it's not? Right? Because if you just said it's been delayed from even going out from delivery, then I don't have to wait in all day. I can carry on with my life. Yes, a parcel being not delivered is inconvenience, but you've now inconvenienced for me 2 days. Fine. She said, right, it should be there with you tomorrow. Fine. Okay. So next day we come along. Delivery time. They give me a delivery afternoon, so it says 12 to 5:30. Get to 6 o'clock. Sure enough, it's going to be the next day. Now I'm annoyed, right? So now I'm like, for God's sake. So I phone Friday morning, and I just go into the phone, customer service agent, before it even starts reading anything, and it goes, directing you to customer service agent. Damn right you are, stupid thing. I speak to this person, and to be fair, right, I said to him, look, I know this is not your fault, and you're the customer service agent, and your phone has said that this is recording, isn't it? And he said, yes, it's recording. I said, cool, right, first of all, help from you, where's my parcel? And he said, I've checked. It has actually gone onto the lorry, right? And it should be out for your delivery. And it was delivered on that Friday at midday. And then I said, cool, the rest of this is being recorded, right? And you can't help any of this. I want you to just either listen or just put the phone down, right? Because if this is being recorded, I want somebody to listen to this. And I just went, what is the point in telling me the parcel's out for delivery if it's not, right? Tell me it's not out for delivery, and then I won't get annoyed, right? Because I can get on with my day as per normal and not be sat hanging around for a parcel that you know is not going to be delivered. Second of all, right, you've got a backlog in October. How the heck are you going to cope in November, December around Christmas? You are utterly scuppered. What kind of company are you that doesn't have that? Third of all, what is this automated phone system? You've got 8, 16... 22 options. You have 22 options for a delivery company. Most people just want to know where your thing is. Fourth, why the heck didn't the code for my delivery work? Oh, I can answer that one. We've made a mistake in the tracking code. It'll only work through that link. It won't work when you actually copy and paste it. It's got one job to add a tracking code. You've given me an invalid tracking code. That makes absolutely no sense. Anyway, I was so incensed by this, I actually sent an email complaint, which, by the way, you can't do without signing up. You have to log into account, and you have to give them your details from an email and a phone number perspective. I can't just send a complaint in. You have to sign up to their website. So, UPS, the United States, United Postal Service, wherever you are, right? You are awful. At least with Royal Mail, I can send a complaint in and talk to somebody. At least with Royal Mail, there are not 22 options on the phone. At least with Royal Mail, they tell me that when it hasn't left the factory or hasn't left the delivery distribution centre, so I don't have to wait in. They just can't actually deliver it into my building, which is very specific to my building. You just were completely hopeless. So I sent them an email. And this email, I've listed down those 4 points again, plus also register. Why the heck do I need to register? Why do you need my details to have a complaint? Right? You need my email for that, but that's it. You don't need to do that. So also, I'm going to enact my GDPR stuff. So after we've dealt with this complaint, you're going to delete me off your system. Right? And I'm incensed. Went through a backwards and forwards with them. And I think it got upgraded because I got a different person, and each time their job title got a little bit longer. What eventually transpired is one of the belts in their distribution center locally had broken, and so they were dealing with a backlog with that. And I went, why didn't you tell me that on the first day? I would have been okay. And I've read a lot about like the way that people are. So for example, in London, the tube service, all of the indications and passengers is they wanted more tubes more regularly. Right? And they did that, and customer satisfaction stayed the same. And some genius went, no. Humans don't necessarily want faster stuff. What humans want is knowledge, right? So all they did is they put up those wonderful signs that you get in the tube station that says the next train and where it's going and how many minutes it's going to be. And that increased the satisfaction level of people from, I think they were like in something like, around the 50% percentile to up to the 80% percentile, because it's all about information. And I said this to these people, right? It's not the fact that my parcel was late. That's annoying, right? Stuff happens. It's the fact that I had no information, no ability to get the information because you put the wrong information on my parcel. And it's, it's the lack of ability to get hold of somebody to understand what is going. If you'd sent a notification on your system that says, hey, we've got a belt broken at this distribution center, or there's delays at the distribution center, it's not been sent out for delivery, I would have been like, that's really annoying, but I can live with that because I don't need to wait in. It's all about information. And that is what annoys me so much about this whole situation. And, UPS is the American Postal Service when I found out. And I was like, well, it kind of denotes everything, in my opinion, around that, doesn't it? It's like, great, wonderful. It's just so inefficient and things like that. So please, people, just use some common sense. It's all about information. So yeah, I think they top the Royal Mail, right? The Royal Mail just can't deliver to my address specifically because of the double door. UPS just can't run a delivery service, which is their entire purpose. Anyway, room 101 done, I think.
Well, I can say quite safely.
I don't think I stopped for about 8 minutes there.
I'm not surprised you're having a drink, and you definitely need to come up for some air. I will say this. That's definitely going into room 101. And thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Distinct General podcast. Dom, any final thoughts?
That's it.
Wow.
I've just stunned everybody into silence.
There's a lot to take in there. I will refer you to a meme that I saw not that long ago, which shows this UPS van and a UPS driver standing in front of the van with his arms crossed. And it looks like an advertising campaign. It said, there's a slogan at the top, and it said, "Did you ever knock on doors and run away as a child before the person had a chance to open the door? Well, we are looking for you, and we're hiring." UPS guy standing there. Oh, I thought that was genius. I like that. That tickled me.
Oh, to be fair, he managed to get through the door and actually knock on the inner flat door of the building. So he, the delivery driver for that place has done a lot better, right?
So come on, Dom. It's not
than
all
Royal
bad.
Mail.
It's not all bad.
I have to admit, it's one of the delivery drivers. If I ever get an Amazon parcel, I think on a Monday, they've started to get lazy. So they still open the door, the main door to the building, but they don't bring the parcels up to your actual flat door and put it outside. So you get a notification on, whatever it is, email, or I'm not going to say her name because she'll start piping up and she needs to pipe down. But you get the notification and you open your door and you're like, where is it? And I have to go hunting around the building to see where he might have placed my parcel, which is right irritating. And then on the email it says, how was the delivery? And there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down on the email from Amazon. And you click it and it doesn't take you anywhere. It just takes you to the the delivery results screen. It doesn't actually take you to a place to say this was pants or whatever. So,
by the way,
it's just things not doing what they should do. Just unexpected things just wind me up.
I think now we should almost do this like an experiment. So I think you should try and find something where you get a delivery to you. You request a delivery from another delivery company. So basically, we do like a Dom's rating of so you can have
all
DHL,
of the same item.
Yeah.
And get it delivered by 3 different...
Yes.
The thing is, I reckon that some of them will just come to the same independent driver that works in this area. That they'll subcontract to an independent driver. So it would just be how good their distribution centre is.
Because then we could compare DHL with UPS, with Royal Mail. What are the other ones?
DHL
Hermes.
Okay?
Is it Hermes?
DHL were the delivery drivers that said that they delivered my parcel, but they didn't. And then when I complained, the photo that they took was of his feet, and he could have been anywhere because he wasn't inside. And then the second photo that they sent was so blurry that when the customer service agent said, "Look, there's a photo," and I actually laughed. I actually laughed because I said, "Have you seen the photo?" And then he went and actually looked at it, and he went, "Oh yeah, that's a bit of a disappointing photo." And I said, "That's really funny, buddy. I think what you need to do is you need to go and get him to come back." And he went, "Yeah, that one's a bit extreme, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah, thanks very much." He said, "I'm really sorry for this. It's not your fault, but."
My God.
If I did my job as poorly as some of these places seem to have the ability to deliver parcels, I'd be sacked.
Pardon the pun.
Oh, that's awful. Get in the bin.
Right.
Anyway, your turn.
Have you got the watch now then?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
You
do.
pleased
Actually,
with
it's very, very pleased with it. And the thing is, right, so...
Does it do everything
we're
but
gonna
tell you the time?
No. Well, interestingly, the time is an interesting one because the only thing I don't like about it is...
It's got no strap?
No. normally when I I don't have mine light up when you rotate your wrist because I wear my watch on my right hand and I'm right-handed, which is unusual. Most people wear it on their non-dominant wrist. And so I turn off that because otherwise it blinks up all the time whenever I'm doing stuff. So I have to press a button. Now, with most watches, it's instantaneous. As soon as you press that button, it lights up. For some reason, there's a bit of a delay, especially if you've not pressed it for a while. Like if you've not pressed it for like, I don't know, sort of half a day or something, which is entirely plausible because I just need to do that. And sometimes, and so you're sat there, you're going, I want the time, I want the time, I want the time, I want the time. But, oh, there we go, there's the time. By which time 3 minutes have passed, so you don't really know what the time is.
So it doesn't do that properly.
Yeah, it's just mental. And stuff like that. However, what's wonderful about it is it has GPS built in. So what that means is, and I'm on my phone, which is bad. Hang on, let me go to me. So I've properly got into Strava now, so you can see stuff. But
Strava?
Spoiler alert for the next. Strava is like a social media for exercise. Is probably the best way I can do it.
Okay.
But it means that I can do, it can track where I've walked. So, for example, there we go. A little bit of a spoiler for the next section. Hopefully you can see. I don't know if it's backwards for you.
I can't really see anything. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm blurry for you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So this is,
got it. Yeah.
Right, so
yeah,
I can have a track of, like, that's where my wanderings around Reykjavik. My dad has a Garmin as well, so we can stick them together. But then also it can be like I can do a run. Like I can track the track running I'm now joining. So I've joined the local running club.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely brilliant. The heart rate stuff's really good. However, I am very unfit, and it likes to remind me that I'm very unfit. So it's going to be good for me over the next year as I get extremely fit again. Is my plan. So yeah. Very happy with the product.
Good.
Just a shame about their choice of delivery service.
Well, at least it arrived eventually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. It'd be ironic if, like, you switched the watch on and then it sort of tracked where that watch had been, like on the conveyor belt at the moment that it stopped, and then taken off the conveyor belt.
Yeah, had the GPS built into it, right?
Right. So
you could absolutely do that.
That would be fantastic. So you could track its journey even before it got to you.
Yeah.
To see where the hell it was.
The thing that I'm going to like from it, right, is because, interestingly, for it to do weight sessions, it's actually too complicated. So I'm sticking to the band on a chest band that I've got. Obviously, it does the run GPS, but it'll do the swimming and also going to do the cycling GPS and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be really good. It's going to be really, really beneficial for me when I do all my other bits and pieces. So
you've gone full.
I'm looking forward to
it. Drago from Rocky. Which Rocky was it? Where they?
That's Rocky 4.
Rocky 4. Yeah, where they get all scientific with it.
Even Drago.
I will break you. Yes.
I will break
you. I will break you.
Do you know what? It's interesting because, like before my holiday, since summer camp, so basically kind of August, September, and October, there's been a bit of a whirlwind, and some other stuff has obviously happened, which we'll go into in a bit. But one of the things that I realised that I've really enjoyed, what I've really enjoyed doing is, back in 2018 when I was really fit, I used to post my workouts quite regularly on like Instagram and stuff like that, right? But just stories and things like that. But it's become a bit of a faff to try and record videos, and I didn't really have anything that was regularly taking like my VO2 max. So my VO2 max currently is about 38, which is pathetic, right? I'm really unfit. It won't mean too much to you, but it should be
too much. It doesn't mean anything to me. I have no idea what you're on about.
And so it's got two things for me, right? It's going to be able to track more accurately my improvement because the Garmin pulls the stats from everything, right? So it can track. Previously I'd have Fitbit to do like these stats, but my VO2 max was wasn't there. my weight was a different application. I was using MyFitnessPal to track my calories. I'm using another app to track my water, whereas Garmin can use all these apps and pull it in. And the other bit then is where I've got into Strava when I joined the running club. So that's Colin's fault. Most things are Colin's fault at work.
Everything's Colin's fault.
Fine. Yeah, but
Colin, if you're listening, it's your fault. Does he listen?
Yeah, and he doesn't even come to the track runs, and I don't go to the end of the normal runs. I only go to track with the running
That makes
club.
it doubly his fault.
I know, it's really good, but I can see the progress, and also I've now got socially, right. So I feel like if I don't upload a workout for a couple of days on Strava, then I'm doing something wrong. So it's about that accountability. So it's an expensive way to do accountability, but it's going to keep me accountable, and I feel more motivated, but also I want to keep that discipline because I want to be like, cool, I want to show off my stats. And Strava will do things like, cool, you ran this 5K at this pace like 3 weeks ago, and you're now running at this pace. So I want to get like those bronze and silver and gold medals again to show that I'm improving. You know, there's going to be days where I'm not feeling it, so it might be a bit slower, but it might still be a bronze place because last time I wasn't feeling it, I was still, 30 seconds slower. So it's that accountability thing. It's about that thing. So, I feel quite motivated, and then it's just about the discipline. So we shall see. I said to you I was going to go to the gym before, but I didn't because I had some other stuff that I needed to do. But I've got it planned to go afterwards.
Fair enough.
So it should all work out.
Well, do you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to borrow your Garmin and then get you to. So I'll just like sit in the boot of your car whilst you drive 5k as fast as you can, and whilst you're driving in the boot, I'll do the motions of running. Right, and then we upload that, and then you go, oh yeah, like Dom's done 5k in about
I don't think it would work.
1.5 minutes. That's incredible.
Yeah, but also what's your resting heart rate, right? It might go, hang on a minute, why is his resting heart rate jumped up 20 beats or whatever?
Well, yeah, exactly. But that's the whole point. You go, my resting heart rate only went up by 20, and I ran 5k in 1.5 minutes.
In 12 minutes.
I still think we should do that. Right, well, Tom, I'm pleased. I'm happy for you.
You weren't expecting any of this. This is like as normal. This has gone a complete tangent, and I love it.
It's gone a complete tangent, and let's bring this back on track. So I'm going to do my Room 101.
Yeah, you do your Room 101. I don't even know what your Room 101 is because
I'll tell you.
Because at least you had the document open. I haven't seen the document, folks, because Jerry won't let me see this one.
No, definitely not. No spoiler alerts for you. So my Room 101, which I don't even have to rant about. It's going to be the shortest Room 101 in the history of Room 101s. Okay. And it's quite broad because I had an experience. So I've had bad experiences with Southwest trains. But then I had to go into London last week and had a bad experience with the tubes as well. So I don't even have to set context to explain this because everybody listening to this will go, oh yeah, of course. There's no explanation needed. So I'm just going to keep it
good
nice
old
and broad.
TfL.
The UK Rail Network, whatever format that takes. And I'm going to shout now. You're all absolute. You charge extortionate amounts of money for a service. You don't even have the nerve to give people a discount when you do engineering works every weekend, and you provide a bus replacement service. You are total and utter. You are not fit for purpose. I would rather walk.
Railway system is not.
I'll get there quicker. You're a shower of. Probably gonna have to.
How many bleeps do you have to do?
I don't know. You're gonna have to bleep quite a lot there. So.
I'll just leave it in.
Oh well, you could do.
Sorry, Mum.
Yeah, I'm really sorry.
I mean, you're not wrong, right? It's insane the cost of the railway. I will get. It's interesting. I did have this discussion with my dad while we were out in Iceland about public transport because the Icelandic public transport was not great. Right, they had no such thing as a metro system, so it was all buses. But there were some other bits that were absolutely exceptional. But yeah, if I'm going to travel in any way, public, I try and avoid the trains as much as possible. I don't really have a choice when we travel up to London for work. That's kind of the only option.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You can't. I mean, you could drive, but you wouldn't want to do that.
No, not to drive it. Not to where our office is in London. Absolutely not. The rail system is awful. I will defend the London Underground a little bit because when the London Underground works, it is exceptional. There is probably no better metro system in terms of like connections. The problem that brings is because then everybody becomes dependent on it. When it doesn't work, it's utterly the worst experience known to man, right? So if it works, it's amazing, but if it doesn't, you're completely screwed because there is no backup.
It didn't work on multiple lines last week,
and that's normally what happens. The London Underground doesn't normally just have like a small delay. It's either perfectly fine or absolutely catastrophic. There's no in between, unfortunately, which just sucks.
Yep.
But the rail service will like stop working because there's a leaf on the track and somebody's got a bit, quick.
It's a llama.
Somebody needs to go pick it up with a pair of tweezers. We can't use anything else because we might damage the tracks.
There's a llama on the line.
What? There's a llama on the line?
They've used that as an excuse. We had llamas on the line. When was that? I think that was back in the 90s. Maybe it was early noughties. But I was thinking, like, can you imagine if somebody did a notification and it said, we're really sorry, we regret to have informed you that all services London-bound are suspended due to Kendrick Lamar on the line. You go, what? You go, why?
Lamar?
I don't know. It's the closest thing to llama. You go, what's going on? You go, well, I don't know. We've got Kendrick Lamar. Basically, he's just like gone mad and he's just running up and down the line, and we can't run the services because it's a danger to his life. And you go, fine. Well, he's a good artist. I don't want anything to happen to him, so it's fine. So I won't go.
I don't think I know anything about Kendrick Lamar off the top of my head.
Well,
so I can't comment if he's good or not, artist or not.
Despite that, it doesn't matter actually. You know, he's a human. Don't want anything to happen to him. It's fine. I won't go to London.
Absolutely.
Okay. So long as Lamar's safe, it's all good.
I'll end this on the positive note. I did see
positive.
This morning. Well, no, I did just see.
We saved Kendrick Lamar.
That's a positive that we saved Kendrick Lamar. Let's do it. I did see this morning somebody had posted, like there was a Reddit thread and it had a hidden image, a spoiler image, or it was hidden. And it basically said, look at this excellent train that I got this morning. Right, and this is in the casual UK subreddit, which obviously is pretty much sarcasm and tea, right? Because that's what it is. And you click the image, and it was an image of a bus, and on the sign it said train replacement service, and then it had I'm a train, choo choo.
Oh, for goodness sake! Even
I half expected the side to then say I'm Trainee McTrain face or something like that, because the British public are just brilliant. You can't beat the sarcasm from the British.
I do like that, but I will say this. Yes, it's funny, and I like the imagination that they've used there. But it still wouldn't stop the rage inside me.
No.
Okay.
If we put as much effort into naming and producing sarcasm as we did to organising some of our public transport,
Yeah.
we'd be second to none. Like, we'd be better than Japan.
Pissing about, painting that pissing bus, and fix the line. Spend your time fixing the line or fixing the train. Oh, I can feel I can feel the rage. Anyway, there you go. That's Room 101. Thank you very much, Tom.
We'll move on.
We'll move on.
Proper Room 101. 40 minutes of us just ranting.
So, we're going to move on to topical events. You've given away loads of spoilers for this already. So, Dom, tell us about Iceland. That's why Mum's gone to Iceland. Well, she didn't, though, did she?
Ironically, the first shop that we did see that when you come out of Keflavik Airport is Iceland.
Are you serious?
They genuinely have an Iceland in
Iceland
Iceland.
In
Yeah,
Iceland.
I'm not even kidding. They've got an Iceland in
so cool.
Iceland, which is genius. I thought it's absolutely genius. Interestingly, their biggest supermarket, equivalent of sort of an Asda or a Sainsbury's, other supermarkets are available, etc., was a company called Bonus, and their mascot was a pig, just a giant round pig. So it was the same color as my T-shirt, which is yellow, right? And then just a pink. So it was a square block. You had like a yellow and then just a pig. It was great. The pig kind of took up the whole. The pig was just the round face, so it just took up almost like a half moon type thing. It was great. Bonus. And interestingly, what time do the shops here in the UK open? Like a big Asda or a big Sainsbury's or a big Tesco. What time? They're not 24 hour. What time do they normally open?
Usually about
non-Sunday?
8 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah, 7, 8 o'clock. Do you know what time they open in Iceland? 10.
10? What the hell?
10 o'clock. Iceland runs about 2 hours behind everybody else. No, early mornings, not a thing in Iceland. For Icelandic people, by the looks of things. At least shopping-wise. 10 o'clock. Restaurants weren't open, like, for dinner. For dinner, we're opening at, like, 5 o'clock. But they were actually closing. And if they open for lunchtime, 11:30. We walked past, when we went into Reykjavik on the first day, on the Tuesday, we walked past shops that weren't open when we were going past them at 9:30 in the morning.
That's insane.
I know, mental, but just an observation. So yes. So I went. Today is Sunday the 27th. So I flew to Iceland on Monday, I think it's the 19th, and flew back 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. No, it must be the 20th. Monday the 20th and 21st. Sorry, and then flew back Friday the 25th. So I was there for 3 days and 4 nights, which I will explain, which wasn't long enough. Absolutely wasn't long enough. Because I think it was probably one of the best holidays I have ever had, ever. And I've been to some significant places. Now I might be recency biased, but absolutely just incredible. So what happened? So we flew out on the Monday. Our flight was at like 9 p.m, which is a bit of a mistake. So we had to get to Heathrow for like 6. So we had to drive from where my parents lived to Heathrow, which was just over an hour and a half, from 4 till 6, which sucked. That absolutely sucked on a Monday. 4 to 6 p.m. That wasn't fun. I won't go too much into middle lane hoggers or drivers, but just let's be known that I'm at the point where I'm submitting dashcam footage now to the police because you're irritating me so much that if you sit in the middle lane, you will be, and I see you in your dashcam for an amount of time, you will be submitted and you will get your fine because stop it. Anyway. Flight was great. Interestingly, it was a transatlantic plane, so it was like it was a big plane. So it actually had entertainment screens in the seats. I'm so used to kind of even flying to as far as places like Romania, as I did a few weeks before. That didn't have entertainment screens and was just a normal kind of 3x3 plane for a 4-hour flight. And this ended up being a 2-hour 45, but you had a entertainment screen in the thing,
cool.
which was brilliant. Pretty standard flight, nothing really out of the ordinary. Landed so Iceland is 1 hour behind us. We landed something like midnight, and then we had about an hour transfer. So Reykjavik doesn't actually have an international airport. They have an airport, but it's not international. The international is in Keflavik, which is about 45 minutes away. which so 45 minutes from the airport to the bus terminal, and then there's a drop-off bus that goes to your hotel. Wonderful. I'm going to say this at the beginning. So we booked everything through Icelandic Air, right? All our trips and excursions that we were doing, and they kind of subcontract that to a company called Reykjavik Excursions. Second to none on the organisation. Absolutely fantastic. It exceeded every expectation. Even when it came to rearrangement, of which there was some stuff and information, absolutely brilliant. I cannot fault them. They were just fabulous. It was so easy. You couldn't get it wrong, right? You had to be an idiot to get it wrong. And there were people that were trying, but like couldn't get it wrong. So basically, to put into context, we stayed at a hotel that was sort of 5 kilometers outside of Reykjavik. A little bit less. It was 5 kilometers the other side of Reykjavik. And so I was expecting, like, when we kind of looked at that, I was like, oh, we've chosen a bit poorly here. But actually, our hotel was one of the main hotels that Reykjavik Excursions then used. So we were constantly dropped off outside of our hotel. Bang outside of our hotel. Sometimes the opposite side of the road if they were going the other way. And so you had to just jump on the traffic lights and cross the 6 lanes. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. So the Tuesday we walked around Reykjavik. So we just walked into Reykjavik. We had a ticket to go to the Aurora Center, which is where they teach you all about the science, the mythology, right? So it's kind of it was a mix of everything, right? What's the science behind it? What's the people's mythologies behind it? The Russian mythology for that is great.
So like the science, and then the myth, kind of and the legend.
Yeah, pretty much. Like that's the best way to do it. I'm going to tell Catherine that she's just interrupted our podcast. She's just messaged me. So we walked across to Reykjavik. Now, we were a little bit weird because we got to the centre and we were like, we walked past it. And we're like, we best walk back to the centre, to the Aurora Centre. And we're like, and it got to the door and it said, we've moved. And it was back where we were in the direction we were bloody walking. So we had to retrace our steps. We were a bit like, I couldn't have it. But yeah, absolutely really great centre, really worth visiting. So the myths were great. I mean, Icelandic ones, it was all about like if a lady is pregnant and a baby is born under the Northern Lights, it's going to be a very strong baby, very healthy. But if the pregnant lady looks at the Northern Lights, it'll be born cross-eyed. That's the genuine belief. The Russian one was great. Basically, all the Russian from this little town, all the Russian men left to apart from one bloke, left for war or something. I can't quite remember. And they came back, and all of the women were pregnant. All of them. And he basically this sole bloke blamed it on the Northern Lights and said it was a dragon that came down and impregnated the women.
Really?
Really? But got away with that.
Okay. He got away with it. Okay.
Apparently, I don't know. That's just a myth. Yeah. And then there was all kinds of other myths as well, the Norse, and they kind of link it into the mythology. The science stuff is really, really advanced, and I'd recommend just going and have a look at it. And then they had some VR headsets, then they had a screening, a half-an-hour screening of all the photos and videos that people had taken of the Northern Lights. Absolutely spectacular, wonderfully, really detailed, vivid photos, some really professional stuff. And then you could go and do some of them in VR. So you could they'd taken 360 photos, so you could see it all, like the way that it kind of moves across the sky. And my dad was absolutely blown away by the VR headsets. So yeah, that was good. Then we walked into Reykjavik. Now, Iceland is famous for their hot dogs. Something that was done.
Yeah, I've heard this.
So there were 2 places that I got recommended, and we actually went to both of them on that day. So our brunch and our afternoon snack was was hot dogs basically, and that's so we managed to compare them. So Taylor, who one of my friends who went a couple of months ago, only managed to go to one of them. So I managed to kind of compare them for her. Unfortunately, the one that she didn't go to, we deemed was better. So in the afternoon, we then went to the Icelandic Museum, which was absolutely fabulous. And the only problem is we'd had an afternoon. We had about 3 or 4 hours left before we wanted to head back home or back to the hotel. But the museum is massive. It's probably a whole day's worth. So we had to rush it a little bit. And the only thing that did annoy me, there was no logical organization to it. That makes, like, it was like, well, you'd sort of walk around little bits and you'd be like 1, 2, 3, and then suddenly you'd be at 26. You'd be like, where the other numbers? And you kind of had to sort of, it wasn't like go down the left and then go down the right. It was like go down the left a bit and come back along the right and then go along the left, maybe all the way to the end, and then come down the right and then come back up the further right. It was a little bit like, and there were a few mislabeled stuffs. And then upstairs, like you walked upstairs to the modern era, which is like they said from the 1800s to modern times. So the first thing that they did was all about their Independence Day, when they fully became an independent country, which was really fascinating, really interesting how they did it and when it was done. So it's actually the 17th of June, 1944, which is right slap bang in the middle of the World War. But they had because they're so far from anything, they had no concept of this. But then the rest of the upstairs, it suddenly jumped back to the 1800s and then built back up again. I was like, that felt a bit weird, but it was still a fabulous museum, lots to do. And actually, one of the best things about it as well is you weren't allowed to take coats and bags in. They had lockers for everything. It's amazing. The amount of times that I've been to a museum in the UK and you're sat there and you're trying to read stuff, but you still got your bag in your back or you're wearing your coat so you're too hot. But to have somewhere you can actually just put your coat and stuff, and then you were encouraged to put on headphones that they encourage you to bring your own headphones and do the tour auditory, so you could you could listen to it and just walk around. It was just absolutely fabulous. And then we walked back again. So we walked 21,000 steps on that first day, which is about 18k.
Wow.
But totally worth it. Like, Reykjavik's a lovely place. We went up to the cathedral. We didn't go in it. We went along the Rainbow Road and stuff like that.
Sorry, what's the Rainbow Road?
So there is a road that is painted as a rainbow.
Because?
The whole way up. I can't remember why. There wasn't any labels explaining why. But it is the road. It is the road that leads to the centre of the cathedral. So I don't know if I've got any photos up. I think I've moved them. Documents, shared, family, Iceland. Photos. This was on not that date. So there you go. So you can see the cathedral in the background, and you can see the way that the Rainbow Road kind of rolls all the way up, basically to the front steps. But the Rainbow Road goes all the way kind of up to the top.
That's so cool.
That's probably about the only hill, but it's really cool. And then that's the cathedral right at the top, which is kind of the famous kind of landmarks that you kind of see around, stuff like that.
Nice.
So absolutely fabulous. We were due to have the Northern Lights that evening, but the weather was bad. We got unlucky with the weather when we went over there. The weather was pretty rubbish, so we basically just were like, "It's fine, right? We just have to deal with what with that." So they cancelled our tour, and that's what I meant about rearrangement. Like they sent me an email, said, "Really sorry, we're going to cancel it. Please, you can either cancel and not go on a Northern Lights tour, or you can just rebook." So I just clicked rebook, sent it to a form, and it was an open form, so I was a bit like, okay. So I just typed out the details. Within 10 minutes, they got back to me and said, "Yep, you're booked on for tomorrow. Totally fine. It'll pick you up from your hotel." Here's where the organisation got really good. So on the Wednesday, we had the Golden Circle tour. So the Golden Circle is kind of, if you picture Iceland, like Reykjavik is sort of here, and Iceland sort of, bubbles out from sort of like Reykjavik on this bit. And the Golden Circle is just kind of like an inner sanctum of this. And they take you normally have a Golden Circle plus something. All right, so we had the Golden Circle plus the greenhouses, which is the plus is the bit that you usually visit first. So we visited the greenhouse first. So this is an 8-hour tour. So we got up, had breakfast, and then it picks us up at 8:30 outside of our hotel, like slap bang outside of our hotel, takes you to the bus station, and then you get on a bigger coach. So the buses from our hotel to the bus station, were kind of your normal hop on, hop off that you kind of get around town centres, or it was kind of like a mini bus type thing. But your excursion buses were like these big sort of 70-seater ones with 6 sets of wheels on winter tyres, because obviously we're in October. And so you're with like a bunch of people doing the same tour as you, and you've got a tour guide who's kind of talking to you as you're traveling. Greenhouse was the plus bit, and my dad chose the plus bit kind of thing out of the Golden Circle, and I didn't really pay attention to it. Absolutely fabulous. So these greenhouses, they grow tomatoes all year round, and basically for 2 reasons. One, because electricity in Iceland is very, very cheap. 100% renewable. Either hydroelectric or geothermal, obviously with Iceland basically being a volcano. And water is very, very pure. So pure, in fact, that they actually have to add nutrients to the water, which means they can add the perfect amount. And also, because the weather's so terrible for 9 months of the year type thing, there's no insects to really do it. So their tomatoes, it's really easy to grow them in the greenhouse because they can just do artificial light and stuff like that. And we, absolutely fabulous. They import bees, specifically bumblebees, which don't produce honey, but they pollinate the most out of all of the bees that you can possibly get. They're also the least aggressive. So they were just flying around. They didn't give a monkeys about you. And some of them were very, very fat. And because it's colder, they get a little bit lazy. So sometimes they need to be a bit kind of prodded a little bit. It's fine. And we also got talking to one of the guides there. So my dad grows tomatoes in his greenhouse. So we were talking about, well, why don't you just get female tomato plants, and then they don't need to be, pollinated, because they naturally just produce tomatoes anyway. I didn't know that was a thing. So we actually stumped the guy called Pablo there with that question. So lots of conversation, just really good, really, really good. Then we went to Giza. It's called Giza. The Giza's called Giza, which has got like all these like hot springs that are at 500 degrees. So you don't go in them because you die. But you walk around it, and a lot of these places I was expecting it to just be natural and just mud pass, but what they've done is they've really concentrated on building up almost like wooden walkways that are elevated above the shrubbery and around all these geysers. And sometimes it was pass on the rock, or in this place they use a lot of kind of rubber, so they weren't very slippery. And then it had this, and when I say big, I mean huge centre that had a cafe, there was a hotel, there was a restaurant. I mean, you're talking from the outside, it looked like a 5-star thing. It was super posh, super lovely. And then, you kind of walked up this mountain, and you had different geysers at different points. There was a really high section that you could get to the top and just almost overlook the entire valley. So that was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. One of the geysers is currently erupting sort of every, they said 5 to 8 minutes, but it kind of was going about every 2 to 5 minutes. So we managed to get kind of photos of that and bits and pieces, and just a spectacular scenery. We also got some food there. And this is the only thing that we were a bit that's a bit disappointing, is you couldn't eat food on the Reykjavik Excursions bus. They sort of said, don't eat food. And I understand why, because otherwise it'd be a mess with people. So that's fine, but me and my dad weren't aware, so we were a little bit what do we do for food? The next bit, then they took us to a waterfall, and I can't remember the waterfall's name, but I did put it on my Instagram story earlier. So if I can get to my archive, I can tell you what this one was called.
Didn't realise. I know it sounds crazy. I didn't realise it had waterfalls, but then why wouldn't it?
Oh, let's just change. Let me. So you got the Gullfoss waterfalls.
Oh wow.
That's my Instagram. Which I got mixed up. I thought we were doing a different waterfall, so I was a little bit disappointed initially, and then I looked at what waterfall we got. So this one you see from the top. There was one that I was hoping to get to see from the bottom, but that's a different one. But again, absolutely fabulous, like stunning scenery. Just so much to look. The weather had come in a little bit, so it was absolutely lashing down with rain, and the wind was unbelievable. Like it was like blowing a gale. But again, a super big center at the top, and then you walk down on these like metal with rubber over the top walkways over the edge. So there's plenty of viewing space, all these wooden bits, all trying to keep you elevated off the rocks and bits and pieces. So again, just fabulously done. And then the final bit was the national park, which basically is on the Thulbringer Lake. It's just to the right of it, and it's where the Independence kind of day happened. So there's a big flagpole of where they all got together. And again, so as you're driving in, you kind of bridge a sort of gap, which is where the Eurasia and the North America plates are pulling apart, which is why Iceland has volcanoes and is kind of prone to earthquakes and stuff like that. So they're currently pulling apart something ridiculous like a centimeter a year, I think they said. But that's still
a lot.
That's still quite a bit. So you see that, and then there's loads of like valleys and gullies and stuff like that. So you arrive at the top and you can walk down, and then suddenly it just opens up, and there must be, I reckon, 10 kilometers of wooden walkways with loads of like things to see. And then we didn't realize, we went back up, and then we went into the center to just kind of, go to the bathroom before jumping on the coach again. And there's another museum, and there was loads more information about what all the walkways are. And we were like, oh, we didn't know about this. Like, if we knew about this. So again, my only criticism of the Golden Circle tour, like 8 hours went like that. Like, because it's like it was like an hour to the greenhouse, 15 minutes to the geyser, 15 minutes to the waterfall, half an hour to the national park, and then an hour back. So that's sort of like 3-4 hours of traveling, and then you spent sort of like 40 minutes to an hour and a half at each one. So again, that's your other 8 hours, and you thought that's plenty of time. It really wasn't.
Yeah,
like, honestly,
it wouldn't
it I felt a little bit rushed, but so yeah. And then you're also driving through this. The drive is entertaining. You got all these like landscapes, different mountains, just absolutely fabulous. So yeah, I'm going to take a pause there in case you want to ask any questions.
Yeah, I do.
Also just to scratch my nose.
What was it? What you expected?
That's a very interesting question.
Because I wouldn't know what to expect, really. Someone said, right, we're going to Iceland. I'd be like, okay, don't really know that much about it.
Can I answer that after I've talked about the next kind of 2 days?
Yeah, go for
about
it.
Expectations.
Yeah, go for it.
Right. Yeah, cool. Okay. I just needed to pause because my nose is just
right.
itchy as fuck. I've just had some grease on it, and it's super itchy. So that evening, now bearing in mind that during the day it had rained and it was very cloudy, and I was thinking they put us on the Wednesday. Now the Thursday was looking crystal clear, so we're like, it'll probably be cancelled tonight and we'll be moved to the Thursday. Means we're going to be ruined on Friday, but it's fine. But it went ahead on Wednesday night, the Northern Lights, and basically the clouds just seemed to open on that evening, and I was like, no way, this is incredible. I can't believe that this is happening. So they took us almost basically back to Keflavik Airport, and then about, I'd say, 3 kilometers south of it. No noise pollution, no light pollution, almost pitch black. Again, people are morons, but I'll talk into that. Literally walked off the bus at about 10 o'clock, and the tour guide lady went, "It's there, get your phone out." Got my phone out straight away. Northern Lights, done, seen it. And then over the next kind of, I don't know, 2-3 hours. Yeah, we were there for 2 hours. So we left at 9:30, left at 9, arrived at 10, left at 11:30. Yeah, so just less than 2 hours. It was full Northern Lights. And what was weird is we almost had like a window into the sky with where the clouds shift, and it would move, and the clouds would come across at different points, but they would, they would shift and just be around there, and spectacular. And both me and my dad were just fist bumping and celebrating, because not only did we get it on the cameras, but you could see them with the naked eye. Now, those spectacular photos that you see, they're heavily photoshopped, or they're caught on a perfect day with a £18,000 camera. What you actually see in kind of with your eye is more of like, it's kind of like a very light grey, or at least it is for me. And it was a bit like, but you could sense that it was there, right? You could see it and sort of feel it, and you could see the way it moved. It moved very differently to clouds. And then when you put your phone out and you got the long exposure and stuff like that, absolutely fabulous. Just wonderful. Never had anything quite like it. And like, honestly, we were over the moon, right? That kind of really made our day. And then the Thursday we had a late start, which is good because we didn't get back to the hotel till 2 a.m. So we were pretty knackered. And we had the Sky Lagoon. Now, we chose the Sky Lagoon because the Blue Lagoon, we always get told, is a bit too touristy, and bits and pieces like that. And I was like, I'm not sure what this is going to be like. Sorry, I had to take a drink now. My voice is slowly going. I've talked again. I've talked a lot. Oh, dear. So I looked at the location of the Sky Lagoon, and it's in like a real industry base. Like, we drove past like these like docks, and it's quite a, not run down, but it's typical kind of industrial kind of area, like warehouses and docks and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, okay, I was a bit like, expectation quite low for this. I thought, let's just go and see what it is. Both of me were like, can't be that. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely insane. So you sort of turn a corner and suddenly you get to like this nice, almost like 5-star spa resort area building. Like, the building's nice and curved. It's got grass on the roof, big car park, all really lovely done. Dark wooden paneling and stuff like that. You go inside, you kind of queue up. We showed our, passes and stuff, and they give you a grey wristband with a kind of like it's got something in it, you can pay for stuff basically and scan stuff, and it does your lockers and stuff like that. So then you go in, big open changing room, loads of lockers, you put your stuff in the locker, and then you kind of walk out, shower, and then you walk out, and some steps come down, and the cave is sort of like this height, and you sort of, I'm 6'3", so I kind of had to duck a little bit, but not massively. And you enter the lagoon, and basically what it is they've carved like this big long, like, it must be, I reckon, 30 foot, like, between these big carvings, and then eventually you get to the end and it opens out onto, now I've put the Atlantic Ocean, but it's probably actually the what's it called, the Denmark Strait, which is the bit between Iceland and Greenland. Just kind of, it's sort of in that direction. It's facing kind of west. So you've got the Atlantic Ocean, and Greenland over here might be the Denmark Strait, but you're overlooking the ocean, and it goes right up to the edge. So basically the water kind of goes into kind of a recirculating area, but it's all natural water. Like, that's just the temperature that it is. And it's massive, like huge. There's a bit of a waterfall on it that they've kind of done, but it's all like rocks that they've kind of carved out. It is 50 degrees, so it's like a hot bath.
No way.
Absolutely wonderful. And really weird, because when you got to the edge of the thing, the wind is obviously coming down. So on that day in particular, it had a -9 wind chill. So there were people in woolly hats sat in the sauna, sat in this lagoon to try and keep them like, what do we call it? Like, cold. And basically we were coming up, and then every now and then I'd have to just drop my head underneath and then come back up because my ears were getting painfully cold.
That's mad.
And there was a 7-step ritual process, which me and my dad were a bit like, let's just see what this is. It was fabulous. So the Sky Lagoon, the lagoon itself, is step 1, and then you kind of walk out, and walking out the Sky Lagoon just onto a platform by the Denmark Strait Sea is just there. It's freezing. Like, I've just got swimming shorts on. They got a cold plunge, which was cold. And I've done cold plunges, but it was very cold. It was like, get in. There was a bloke in there that was like, and I was like, oh, get in. Quickly run into the building. And the guy comes up to me and says, have you done the cold plunge? Yes, we've done the cold plunge. So I can tell. Anyway, so step number 3 was the sauna. Now, like, I've been in saunas before, but, you know, whatever. But it says saunas are the wooden cabinet ones where they kind of throw hot water on coals to make it, but it's not super steamy. It's more just hot. You walk in. I encourage you to pick up a towel because the seats get quite hot. And then we go into the sauna, and it's got a wall-to-ceiling glass side, which is overlooking the Denmark Strait, the sea, so you can see out into just everything. And then the sauna's kind of built around it. It had automatic jets that did the kind of water spraying at the right time. Very hot, lovely temperature, but like, now that's my type of thing. You come out of that, and then you go along the corridor and you come into the bit, and basically you're in between sort of 2, I'd say 20-foot cliffs, and you're kind of at the bottom, and they're spraying cold water. They call it cold mist. Obviously, you're still just outside, so it's very cold. So again, me and my dad sort of spent, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes there because it was quite chilly, but kind of just wanted to kind of really experience it. Go into the next room to kind of walk through the mist, and they gave you a body scrub. And I was thinking this is going to be weird, and it's a really weird texture. Can't really quite describe how it is, but it's a bit like a paste, a little bit of a gritty paste. So you rub it all over your body. It says don't put it on your face, but you rub it all over your body. Get your back, everything, basically as much as possible. And then you go into steam room. And this obviously steam room, again, slightly different to the sauna because that is about just general heat through water rather than heat through kind of dryness. And like, I've sweated before, but I think this opened up every single pore known to man. Like, I was pouring with sweat within a minute, and which is good. It's meant to get the salt into your body, onto your skin. Just again, different experience, and we're probably in there for about 5 minutes, and then you come out and you shower off. The best shower head distribution of water I've ever had, right? Obviously the holes were slightly thicker, so it just felt just perfect. Skin, I've never had skin smoother. Honestly, it was probably smoother than when you were a baby. It was just ridiculous. And then the final step, the 7th step, was what they call the elixir of life. And basically it's cranberry juice and an Icelandic herbal tea, cold, gorgeous, so tasty. I know, like cranberries, but like just something about it was absolutely delicious, and kind of really kind of set the tone for that. And then you're back outside and you can go back in the lagoon, which we spent another 15-20 minutes in. They had a bar. So that's what the point of the grey wristbands is. You could pay on the wristband and you could bring out the drinks and have that. There was alcohol and stuff like that. You're limited to 3 alcoholic drinks, understandably. But yeah, that to me, the reason why I said about expectation is because my expectations was on the floor for it. Well, not on the floor, but like I just like whatever. It was a day filler. It felt like, and it exceeded it, and everything else exceeded the expectations even when they were higher. And like, which is why I say it's probably one of the best holidays that I've ever had. And then we had a 3 a.m. start on the Friday to get back to the hotel, to get back to the airport.
Where were you
because we had
flying
a
back then?
7 o'clock flight.
7. Wow.
7 a.m. So that's why I said I had 3 days and 4 nights.
Yeah.
It was a bit manic because obviously there was hundreds of flights going, and we were on a bus that arrived. Well, we were a convoy of 2 with 70 people on each, so 140 descend on the airport. But they were pretty good. Bag drop was really interesting because we got to the bit to pull out a label, and then the bloke comes over. I'm closing these now because I need to extend the. So you got that cinema queue, as I refer to it, and he needs to extend the lines across these things. And I need to close them, and I went, I kind of pushed my dad a little bit aside and just pressed start. And he said, "Unless you've already started." And I went, "I've already started to sod it." So we're the last ones to on those self-service baggage. Printed our things, moved slightly to the side, and put them on. By which point they'd put the barriers around us, and we're like, "Oh, well, we're already in the bag drop queue," because they'd put the queue around us, type thing. So we just carried on walking around it and skipped about 3 snakes.
No
Where
way.
everyone else, but they'd sent everyone
What are
else
the
around,
chances
so we
of that?
skipped a bit of the queue. Absolutely incredible luck. Sent our bags along, got through all of the bits and pieces at the airport, and then the flight back wasn't a 3-and-3 layout; it was a 2-3-2 layout. It was a big transatlantic flight. I'd forgotten that me and my dad we'd booked extra legroom, but it was just me and him, which made life much easier because nobody there to disturb us. It was just us two. We could see the bathrooms. We weren't the one to the bathrooms. We weren't the one behind it. We were the one behind them. So anyone that was queuing wasn't queued next to us and stuff like that. It was just got that. I've put here security was okay, but people are idiots. People are morons.
What, tourists or
God's
locals?
Tourists, just tourists, right? If the security guard says you need to remove your belt, just remove your belt. And it was funny. We had a lady went through just before, like about 3 people before my dad, and the guy said, "I'm really sorry. I need you to take your shoes off. So you need to go back through, take your shoes off, and put it in." And she kind of went, no, mouthed off at him, and then walked back through. So she put her shoes in her thing, put it on pushed in front of somebody and pushed her shoes into the carousel, and then skipped back in the queue in front of my dad. And my dad was like, "Whatever, right? You're not going. I know you weren't going to be someone that was going to go to the back of the queue." Anyway, so she went through the thing, and he went, "I'm really sorry. You now need to step aside to there, and I can't go through with you because it needs to be another lady that kind of pats you down and stuff like that." And so by which time both me and my dad had then gone through, and even though it beeped for me, he went, yeah, whatever. So it was purely about attitude. Yeah, it was purely about attitude, where it was like, no, she just had a really horrible attitude, so he made her stay and do like extra bits.
Yeah, but wait 1 second. It beeped for you, and they didn't stop you.
He waved me through. He just took one look at me and just waved me through, where I'd let people in front. He was like, "Yeah, no, I know what you're like." It was great, absolutely great. And then when it comes to the other side, right, we've got electronic passports, right, and the instructions are very clear. Put your passport in, pictures page first, push it down, wait for the camera to come up, follow instructions. Amazing how many people cannot do that. And so much so that my dad was like, "Blimey," because I just, like, as soon as it was me, everyone else was taking like 5 minutes each time. I walked in, slapped the passport in, looked at it, it went, "Oh yeah, I know you are," and then opened the door, and he went, "You were the quickest person I'd seen throughout the whole thing. I'd never seen it so quick." And he was just as quick because he'd followed my lead. So
Crazy.
yeah, I think that's everything.
Is that it? You sure?
Yeah, I think so.
Food-wise, apart
It was
from the
a great
hot dogs?
holiday. We were a bit unadventurous with the food. I think there's 2 regrets that I had. Like, so we didn't go to a traditional Icelandic place. We had a pizza place that was right next to us, and when I say pizza place, it was significantly fancier than that. But it wasn't overfilling. It was really lovely, actually, and not too expensive. Like, it still was sort of like 40 to 60 quid for me and my dad, so it's on the pricier end. And then we went to a steakhouse the second night, and then on the third night we actually went back to the pizza place because we were just so tired, right? Because we'd done the Northern Lights before. We'd just got back from the Sky Lagoon. We're getting up at 3:00, so we didn't want to, because we were a bit of a distance from Reykjavik, we didn't want to try and walk into Reykjavik. So I do regret not going to a traditional kind of place, but we didn't have bad food. We did make a mistake at the supermarket and bought the wrong food with us when we went in the Golden Circle, but that was our idiotic choice, nobody else's fault.
Why? What
Apples
did you get?
were really tasty. So we were supposed to, we picked up 2 bags, and one was, the best way I can describe it, looked like a bread roll with cheese on the top.
Okay.
And it said it was a pizza flavoured thing, and it was. It had like basically a pizza sauce in the middle with cheese on the top, and it was quite tasty. And then there was another one, And the best way I can describe it is it looked exactly like a cinnamon bun. And we're like, great, cool, some cinnamon buns. That's what we wanted. But we didn't read it, and it was actually another pizza flavored thing. And so I had the sandwich at the cafe, and I was thinking, I fancy a cinnamon bun. Picked up the cinnamon bun and went, why does this taste like pizza? And then we read the packaging. So we were a bit like, that was a bit of a idiotic side on ours. And because it had no cheese with it on those, it was a bit overpoweringly tomatoey.
Okay.
A pizza without cheese is just wrong.
Yeah,
so
it's all kinds of wrong.
Yeah. So food-wise, we didn't make great choices after kind of the Reykjavik day. And I had three things that happened to me. So on the walk on the Reykjavik day, I clipped the edge of a windowsill that was at my sort of this height, and I've literally just punched me in the corner, and it's torn just a perfect hole in my coat, which I'm really annoyed about. And it's because of my really nice pea coat, which I've had for like 15 years. There were three things, wasn't there? What was the other thing? Oh, the wheel on my luggage broke. The rubber wheel has like snapped off. Well, I've got the inner bit, the rubber around it just seems to have disintegrated randomly. But again, we worked out I've had that for 8 years. And then on the pizza, on the Thursday night, I paid for the pizza with my phone. So it beeped, and I pulled it away, and my bank, the credit card company went, it's paid, and Apple said it's paid, but it didn't go through. So there was an awkward kind of 15 minutes where they tried to phone up to see, did it do that? And then I went, look, let me pay again. Right, so I paid again, but it's 46 quid. When you double 46 quid, that starts to get a bit expensive, sort of thing. So I paid again, and they said, look, if both comes through, we'll immediately refund you. I'm thinking, that's fine, yeah. And I kind of trusted that they would, because they were quite good to us at this point. Fortunately, when I got back to the hotel, my credit card company had already issued a refund, but it was 15, let's just random numbers, it was 1,500 ISKs, so Icelandic krona. All right. And they've refunded 1,500 Icelandic krona, but for some reason they've because where they've used exchange rate, it was 46.99, but they've only refunded me 46.44.
Right.
So I am going to contact them and be like, I know it's 44 pence, but you're taking a bit of there because the money should never have left the account, right? So can I have my 44 pence back? Because also I then get and because of it, I've also been given an additional foreign fee. They've given me a foreign fee for it going out, and they've also taken money for it coming back in. And I'm like, no, it was a null and void transaction. Give me my money back. I know it's like 3 quid, but it's the principle behind it, you buggers. So that's a Monday task. And just a little bit of a faff that we had at the end of that kind of meal that we didn't really want or need, but c'est la vie.
Well, it sounds like an absolutely amazing experience. You got to see the Northern Lights, which I've known 3 people over the years that have gone to Iceland specifically to go and see the Northern Lights. That was like their primary motivator for going there, and didn't see them. So you saw them.
Yeah.
You had what sounds like an amazing experience. And the question now is, would you go back?
Yes. So I said to my dad, and also, by the way, it was lovely to spend like 3 or 4 days with my dad, right? Don't normally get to spend that amount of time with my folks. I'm terrible, and I know my mum listens to the podcast, and I need to find some way to spend some time with her because she won't travel abroad. But I'm really bad at keeping in contact with folks and with friends and stuff. I'm a bit rubbish. I'm pretty pants. So I said to my dad, I said, I'd love to go again. And I said, the reason being is 2 things. I'd like to go in the summer. I'd like to go and experience what a midnight sun is like. I'd like to do the stuff on the Golden Circle again, but with more time. So, I wouldn't need to do the greenhouse again, but I'd like to go to the geysers. Geysers, we had enough time, but I would have liked to have walked a little bit more. The national park could be, I reckon, is a whole day's adventure. It's not 30, 40 minutes. It's probably half a day to a whole day. There's a museum there that we didn't get to go around. There's a full centre. Then I want to walk around all the bits, all the boardwalks, go and find all the things and bits and pieces. There's another waterfall that you could have seen. There's at least 3 other kind of big things around Iceland that I'd like to see. And we didn't even scratch the surface of Reykjavik, so I would have liked to go into Cathedral. There was the Icelandic Art Museum. What else was there? We didn't get time to walk around one of the lakes. There's so much that we could have done. And so I think if I was to do it again, I'd like to hire one of the summer houses that they were talking about. So you're in a bit more of a middle of nowhere kind of, see what that was like. Okay. I'd like to hire a car so I could then drive to all the places that I wanted to go and spend some time there. So I would absolutely go again. Absolutely. And I've never really said that about anything. I would like to go back to Budapest. There's more on Budapest that I'd like to have done that I didn't get to do. But Iceland is 100% a place I'd like to go.
Nice. Nice. Okay. And something I was going to ask you about, because you took 2 weeks off. So you did 2 weeks off. So you did the trip to Iceland in the second week. Mm-hmm. And you took I was going to ask you, the rationale for taking the week off before. What did you do? Was it worth it? I've got a theory as to why you did it, but
there was 2 reasons for it. First of all, I'd burnt out at work, completely and absolutely burnt out. It was good. Loads of stuff kind of set a deadline for something else at work, which I'm not going to go into because we don't talk about work too much on here, but it worked out really well for that. And it set a deadline, which means that me coming back into work is going to be a bit transformational. I'm actually excited to get back, slightly different challenge, but a good one. I think hopefully will be good. There'll still be problems like work. Work doesn't kind of not come without its problems. But the other 2 main reasons. The other reason, obviously, my health's not been great, so I was like, well, I'd like to kind of hide away a little bit. Almost shielding, I suppose, is the best term for it, so I don't get sick before, which, thank God and touch wood, I didn't. Obviously, with all the coughs and colds, I avoided kind of some stuff that was supposed to happen at work that week, which I'm quite grateful for, because being in a crowded space 3 days before going to Iceland, typical, I would have picked something up and it would have ruined Iceland. Some of my other holidays I've got coming up later, I'm less worried about being as sick because I'm not doing anything, whereas Iceland was 21,000 steps on the Tuesday. So I did nothing. And when I say did nothing, I did nothing from the Saturday to the Sunday before, so sort of 9 days. And I needed it. I haven't had one of those kind of holidays in a long time to really just sit down and just process what was happened in my brain. The real opportunity to do that. The first few days I did go to I went to the gym. Meant I could go at kind of random times when it was a lot less busy, which is good. I also did for the first time a really big shop. I bought a load of stuff that would last a week, which I've not done. Spent 80 quid. And realised that I can do that, which means that I feel less dependent now of sort of being near a shop on a regular basis if you do a bit of pre-planning. So that worked out really well. Just took the opportunity to chill. I mean, the first night I went to bed on the Friday after work, sort of normal time, 9 o'clock-ish, 9:30, and I woke up at 1 p.m. on the Saturday, right? It's just that ability to just go and just really switch off. And as I look to kind of, I'm not going to do holidays like this probably for a few years after if other things go to plan, right? I'm looking to buy a house and things like that. So, knowing that I can take a week off and do nothing and survive and actually just feel a little bit better about kind of how things are going, I think is really important. Yeah. A load of happened, inside and outside of work. All at the same time, especially kind of pulling 1 a.m. nights to try and get stuff done. There's no other word for it. Completely burnt out, and I feel great. And that burnout didn't just come from that burnout as well as kind of going demotivated at work. Don't feel I can get anything done. Not feeling great about myself. I'm kind of like really questioning my job role and my responsibilities. But also then I was not looking after myself outside of work. So when I talked about earlier about the Garmin and the exercise, right now I feel refreshed. I feel like I'm ready to go back to the gym. I'm ready to kind of, I haven't been to Taekwondo since news that we'll talk about later. I haven't been. It's been 5 weeks since I've done any Taekwondo, which is the longest I've never done stuff. And the team are currently out in Argentina, and I've spoken a lot to Swanee and stuff like that. And just not had that. But this week I feel like I'm ready to go back, and actually, right, I'm going to get myself fit again and just see what happens. So, yeah, the mental health side of things that we've always kind of talked about on this podcast a little bit, and in my opinion, I've failed occasionally on those. I really just took an opportunity to be totally selfish. Just was like that to the world. I went and hid away. I played a lot of video games. I went for some runs. I went to the gym. I ate some good food and just told the world to leave me alone. I've never done this. I'm quite bad for just occasionally checking work emails when I'm on holiday, right? Just to make sure nothing's important. I've not touched them. I've absolutely no idea how many I've got tomorrow to deal with tomorrow.
Yeah, it's fine.
I've got no idea how many Teams messages. And to a certain extent, it's like, well, it's fine because I know what I'm doing Monday. Monday will be just 8 hours of that, or 7.5 hours is what I'm contracted for. And then I'm going to take that opportunity to now really set some boundaries because I've had that big reset, right? A big change at work, a big reset for holiday, a big enjoyment for holiday where I've just had a great time. So let's just get back into the groove of things.
Nice. Well, good for you, Dom.
By the way, I don't know if am I coming across more nasally because I certainly feel like my voice is going.
No. Well, not really. No. I don't know what's going on with your nose, but
what's going on with my nose, right? So I had pizza for lunch. I'm going to self-confess. I've had pizza for lunch. I like pizza. I'm going to really self-confess. I did have a Hawaiian, but that's because that was the only pizza left. And basically, all I've done is I've got some grease on my nose, and my nose is so itchy. So what I've been trying to do, right, is I've been trying to get some water on this bloody microfiber cloth that I've got next to me to try and wipe it off. But it is not going to go until I actually go and wash my face. So my nose I'm going to look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Well, that'll teach you for eating bloody Hawaiian pizza.
So I'd look horrendous, but it's fine.
I'm fine.
I may be single, but I'm not trying to get anybody.
You look fine.
So the podcast is not going to do anything for my dating opportunities, is it?
Oh, for goodness sake, you look fine.
I've got these bright lights. I'm sweating like a pig, so they're off. I need to get a makeup artist.
You need hair and makeup. You definitely need hair and makeup.
I do need hair and makeup.
Like all good divas and that are actors, actresses. They all have them. You should do it. They come around with a powder and they just like dab, get rid of the sheen. Don't know what all that stuff's called.
And look how red my nose is. It looks horrendous.
Yeah, that's fine. It's coming up to Christmas, so you're getting festive, right?
Yeah.
So, I wanted to hear about ice. Go on.
I'm very conscious of the time, by the way, because you've got 40 minutes before you have to leave.
Yes. So that's fine. So one section I'm going to skip, but I'm going to do a quiz on Iceland because there's no point doing a quiz on Iceland in the next episode, right?
No.
So,
you can host the next episode, and if we get the guest that we want on, I think that would be really good.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. So we can save the other bit for that.
Okay.
Because this person's brain does not work like everybody else's.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well let's save it for then. Fine. Yeah, that'll be good. Right. Okay, here we go. So, Dom, we've got a quiz on Iceland. There are 10 There are 10 questions.
Jesus Christ.
10 questions. Well, you've just come back from there, so it should be fresh in your mind. So, true or false? It is one of the oldest democracies in the world. And you went to the museum.
It's true. I think that's true.
Okay. You're right. And not everyone knows this fact, but Iceland has the oldest parliament in the world that is still in existence.
Yes, so although their independence was not until 1944, when it was founded originally, so when I think it was Norwegians went over and settled there, they never kind of said we're going to be a kingship or like, communist thing or whatever. They went straight to parliamentary democracy, and all of their bits and pieces, it's based around farmland. Is basically how it's done. And as soon as you own some farmland, you're allowed to do whatever you want. So there's farmers that obviously done sheep. A lot of it's sheep. There's obviously fisheries and stuff like that. But some of the farmers have just gone, do you know what? And they've just dug straight down and gone, look, there's hot water. I'm going to sell it to everybody. As weird as it sounds, you sell hot water to other people. But yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So, yes, I did know that. I was trying to remember if it was false because it was only 1944 they got their independence, but I think because they were democracy right from the beginning.
Yeah, one of the earliest. Absolutely. I think along with the Romans and Greeks as well. I think.
Yeah.
Well done. Right, so question number 2. True or false? It's one of the most dangerous countries in the world.
That depends on what your definition of dangerous. The countryside is dangerous, but in terms of people and crime index, it's the safest place in the world.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's false.
Yeah, you're right. So in Iceland, you don't have to worry about violent crime. So the country boasts one of the lowest crime rates in the world. For over a decade now, it's always been topped as, I think it's top 3 or something in the safest countries list.
It was top in 2022.
Wow, okay.
But I've not seen the more recent ones. Interestingly, the reason for that is twofold. One, because if you perform a crime, where are you going to run to?
That's true.
Right. And 2, if you do perform the crime, it is very, very severe punishment. Even speeding fines are ridiculously expensive. And I think they also, but I'm not 100% on this, they also follow the similar to Swedish thing. So if you're caught speeding in Sweden, your fine is the equivalent is based upon your yearly salary.
Right, yeah.
So there's a bloke that got something like 1 million Swedish krona fine because he was doing 146 in his supercar, but it's based upon his yearly income. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that's mad. Well, here's something else as well. But this is something I had no idea about. There's also a greater sense of equality within the population, which is in turn helped by the small population of just over 333,000. So there is a sense that everyone knows each other, that's going to.
yeah. It's a little bit higher now. It's 356 when we arrived.
Oh, okay. Wow, it's a bit crowded now. I'm feeling a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to go
But
now.
also-
I feel claustrophobic.
75% of them live in Reykjavik.
Something like that. Yeah. 2/3 of the
Yeah.
population or something. Yeah.
Yeah, 2/3.
Yeah.
2/3 actually. Yeah, 2/3. That's definitely a bit more familiar.
Nice to see you. You know about Iceland, right? Okay, well done. That's 2 out of 2. Question 3: in what year was the first Iceland store opened?
Oh, come on!
I was dying to do this because I knew it was going to wind you up.
What the fringe?
It's a quiz about Iceland. I didn't say necessarily just the country.
It's quite early. It's something ridiculous like 1926.
No, not as early as that.
No, my miles off.
1970 is when the first Iceland store opened.
Did not
in
know
the
that.
UK. Question number 4.
Interesting fact, 1970 is a very important year because that's also the year that Epoch is. And Epoch is... So in Unix systems, when they do the date, they're literally counting in binary,
Right.
Not binary, in 16-bit hexadecimal, and they just count up. And 0 is the 1st of January 1970.
Oh wow! Okay, there you go. You see, this podcast is not just
And that's
entertainment;
why
it's education.
And that's why there's specific dates where people get panicked. So they thought the millennium was going to be a problem, but it's not. I think it was something like 2012 that they started talking about it. You know, when they started talking about the Mayan calendar. It's also because if you've got a 32-bit encryption on your system, 16-bit encryption, you run out of digits. So you hit 999999999. Oh no, sorry, FFFFFFFFFFF for 16-bit. Right, you hit that limit, and then the next one is 0, and they're like, "What's going to happen?" But fortunately, most of us now use 32 or 64-bit machines, so there are more atoms there are less atoms in the universe than there are numbers on computer systems at 64-bit.
Jeez. Okay. Question number 4. What major decision was made by Iceland in 1986? And I'm talking about the store.
Oh, the store? You bugger. Was that to be only frozen food?
No. So Iceland becomes the first UK supermarket to remove artificial colourings, flavourings, non-essential preservatives and monosodium glutamate from its own brand products. 2 decades before some of its major rivals.
Nice.
There you go.
I know that.
Question number 5. True or false? The Icelandic language has over 100 words for wind.
That could probably be true, actually.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I'm not even going into any more detail on that because it would probably mean me having to try and pronounce some of the words.
How many letters are there in the Icelandic alphabet? Is that one of your questions?
No.
But how many letters are there?
30?
36.
36. Okay. Okay. And it probably needed those extra letters to come up with the different words for wind.
It's a lovely language, by the
Yeah.
way. It sounds great.
Okay.
Whenever anybody was speaking it, sounds
Can you
great.
say hello in Icelandic? Can you speak any Icelandic?
hello.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's hello.
Okay. What's goodbye?
They tend...
Goodbye.
I don't know that. I have to admit, both me and my dad were actually kicking ourselves because we didn't learn any before we went out, which was really bad of us. But everybody learns English.
Okay.
And there was the thing is, like, we were in such a touristy kind of things that they defaulted to English quite often, and bits and pieces. But yeah, the common introduction is hey hey.
Hey hey.
So
Okay, well, I like that. Hey hey.
hey hey.
I think horses would like that too. Right, question number 6. Iceland is named among the Sunday Times best places to work, the only supermarket on the list. It got this coveted title in which year?
Oh God, Bennett. 92. I'm purely guessing.
No, 2024. So this year?
Really?
Yeah, this year.
I don't even know where an Iceland is near me.
I don't know. You need to ask your mum. That's why she's gone there. Question number 7. True or false? Beer was banned in Iceland, the country, until 2019.
False. It was banned up until 1989.
Correct.
86.
Correct. So it went through a prohibition of beer which began in 1915 and it ended in 1989. How crazy is that?
Oh, get
After a referendum vote by the population. So now every March the 1st the country celebrates Bjordegurin, or the Beer Day, commemorating the end of a 74-year beer ban. How mad is that?
Yeah. That's why I knew 2014 was false. I couldn't remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
86, 89. Oh, that
Incredible.
shows I did learn
Nice,
something,
you
didn't
did. Question number 8. Fun fact about Iceland. This is not a question, by the way. It's got nothing to do with the quiz. It's just a fun fact about the Iceland store. So Iceland Foods. So this is the connection, you see. There is a connection. There's a thread. Iceland Foods Limited has been accused by the government of Iceland of engaging in abusive behaviour by trademarking the name of the country and of harassing Icelandic companies and even the Icelandic Tourism Board by pursuing legal action against Icelandic companies which use the name of their country in their trading names. November 2016, the Icelandic government filed a legal challenge at the European Union Intellectual Property Office, or EUIPO, to have the company's trademark invalidated on the basis that the term Iceland is exceptionally broad and ambiguous in definition, often rendering the country's firms unable to describe their products as Icelandic. So the Iceland magazine noted that Iceland Foods was founded in 1970 but only acquired the Europe-wide trademark registration of Iceland in 2005. According to the sagas Iceland, the nation was established in 874 AD. It's an insult to common sense to maintain that the supermarket chain has a stronger claim to the trademark than the country. So in April 2019, the EU IPO invalidated the Iceland trademark. There you go.
But what? But Iceland is not Iceland in Icelandic.
Well, You need to take it up with Iceland. I don't know.
Island.
Iceland.
Island.
Okay, that's why Mum's gone to
So
Iceland.
there are lots of other ones.
Okay.
There are lots of other.
Question number 9. How much is a 250-gram pack of Iceland large North Atlantic prawns?
£3.50.
Oh, you're so close. £3.65. Nice.
Oh, get
Dom,
in.
I'll give you that. I will give you that. And then question number 10, last one. True or false? Iceland has one of the longest work weeks in Europe.
True?
Ooh, why do you say that?
No, that can't be right.
Sure.
No, I'm going to say true. True.
Okay, good choice, because you're right.
Yeah,
What
I
made
don't know
you...
why. I
What,
can't remember why.
okay,
Well, because they work weird hours, but there's not much else to do on the island.
apart from work. Fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
it is true. So one of the most interesting facts about Iceland is that on average, Icelanders work 45 hours a week. It was once the longest work week in Europe, but since 2018, Iceland takes third place. Things might be changing, though, as Iceland completed an extensive experiment with a 4-day work week from 2015 until 2019. They cut official hours from 40 to 35 to 36 without decreasing salaries, and apparently it was a huge success, both in terms of motivation, people's mental health, and productivity. So there you go. Right. Dom, well done.
I didn't do too badly.
Yeah,
there,
you
I?
did all right. I wasn't keeping score, by the way. I haven't got Scooby. But you did very, very well. I mean, considering that I even gave you the price of the large North Atlantic prawns, I think you got like 7 out of 10, pretty much.
Yeah.
And the only 3 that you didn't
7
get...
out of 9.
No, well, yeah, that's true. Sorry, 7 out of 9. You did really well. You did very, very well. Nice one. So you're obviously... You're obviously paying attention, and the thing is that Hoops wasn't here to
Cheap.
to somehow sway the scoring. Right. What time is it? How are we doing on time? I think we're doing.
We've got
okay.
25 minutes.
Yeah. So, topical events. I put one down, which was moving into a new house, which, to be fair, what am I going to say about that? It's been nice. It's been a journey, but it's still changed. So it's been really, really tiring. And it makes me realise that moving into a new house actually is always underestimated. Right?
Oh, sucks. Moving sucks.
It does. It actually does. I mean, moving is... You kind of think, you look at the stuff around you, you think, gee, that's not too bad. But what's amazing is just how much stuff you have to move.
I'm going to call out my mum on this because my parents recently moved. Well, it was probably like 3 years ago now that they moved, and they downsized, which is probably one of the harder things to do, right? In my case, I'm going to be upsizing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be upsizing, so I don't need to worry about where the stuff's going to go. I've just got to put it in there and then sort stuff out later. But when you're downsizing, it's a little bit more difficult. And I do remember my mum being stood in the new garage of the new house, and she goes, "Why do we still have so much more to deal with?
Yeah.
We got rid of it."
Yeah.
She's like, "Where's it all coming from?"
Yeah, it's true. It's like never ending. And I thought I managed to sort of get rid of quite a lot of stuff, but clearly I hadn't. I mean, it's not too bad, but it's just hard work. But I'm in the place, I'm in the house. So what's interesting is I'm going to be able to put my own stamp on it, and that's quite nice. It's quite a good feeling. So that was it, really. That's the only interesting, monumental thing that's happened to me.
I was going to ask a question.
In the
It's
last few
completely
months.
just gone out of my brain. What was I going to say? Well, there is one thing. You need to send me your new address. At some point,
Yes,
actually,
yeah,
so
I will.
can
Yeah, definitely,
get that.
definitely.
But yeah, and obviously we had a chat last night, so I'm going to go and see the house and stuff like that. We got some plans coming up, which is very exciting.
Yes, it is.
But we'll not be on this podcast because we're going, no, we're just going to have a good time.
Yay,
Woo!
Yeah, definitely.
that's sometimes the best way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, having moved house, 5 times in 4 years for university, it sucks.
Yeah.
It
Oh, yeah,
absolutely
that's true.
sucks. Oh,
Yeah.
I hate it. I hated it. And that wasn't even like a major move, right? That's sort of like moving from one furnished place to another furnished place.
Yeah.
So you're only talking like, computer, games consoles, those types of clothes and those types of things. And that just drove me mental. And even at the end of 4 years of university, it's amazing how much crap you seem to just inherit. Now,
Yeah.
I live in a very small flat at the moment, right, 25 square meters, so I don't have too much stuff, and I try and kind of get rid of stuff quite frequently. I'm probably due for getting rid of stuff at some point. I think it's nice to keep things simple, and I'm about to do a house purchasing journey. Now, obviously, I'm going to be upsizing, so I'm less, it's going to be quite easy, but a lot of the furniture I've got is like 10 years old, so I'm going to have to get rid of some, buying new some. And then you've got to do like, is it going to last? Is it, but it's really expensive, but is it going to last? Do I buy some cheap stuff and it doesn't last? You're just like, ah. So, yes, moving house sucks.
It does suck. I mean, the good thing is at least you've got stuff. I mean, one of the things that was challenged for me is I had to literally start from the ground up. So I didn't have a microwave, didn't have a bed.
I don't have a microwave, to be fair.
Okay. Well, I didn't have a bed. At one
challenging.
point, I thought I wasn't even going to have a sofa. Like no coffee table, no mugs, no kettle, nothing. It was literally just like, okay. So I had to literally.
So have you gone and bought all that stuff now?
Yeah.
You didn't think to sort of say, well, actually, I'll get the bed, and then I'll think about the other bits.
What other bits?
Sofa, coffee table. Do I actually want one? What type of one I want? Because
you need.
Because having an empty room is okay.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, I haven't got a TV. I've been in the house now for almost a month without a TV. And I have to say that's been a lot easier than I thought. It's actually been a lot easier than I thought. So I do miss the TV, but not to the extent where I felt this sort of real urge to just like, well, I have to get one, I'll order one. I'm only just starting to look at TVs now. But I will say that yes, you're right. You could sit in an empty room, but it's amazing. Actually, I think it's more important to have a room that's furnished and actually you've got an environment that looks a bit homely than even having a TV.
It's interesting.
And that's my learning. That's my learning from that.
It's interesting. And the reason why I say this, right, is because like when I move, I'm going to have empty rooms when I move into a house and probably not as much cash as I'd like to go and buy all the stuff immediately. So I'm kind of going like prioritization on things. So obviously bedroom is the first thing that should go up in any house, right? Because
you need that. I've slept on an airbed for 3 weeks, over 3 weeks.
Oh, that's the worst.
24
nights.
24 nights I've slept on an airbed and still managed to function.
Don't do airbeds. But for example, I'm planning to put a gym in my flat. In the house that I get, right? That's one of the things that I want to do. And the more I think about it, the more I know what I want to do. That's going to be very expensive. So I'm not going to be able to get everything at once. But I'd rather have the gym in the house and not have a television and not have, because I don't have a television in this one, and not have a sofa and stuff like that. Because, well, I can't sit anywhere, so I might as well go into the gym and do some gym stuff, like to get some more exercise. And I'd also rather have my office set up properly so I can work than have a sofa I can sit down. That can come in time, right? So it was just curious to sort of say, you've said about sofa and television stuff, but like, bed definitely, but sofa, maybe you could have, maybe that could have been delayed, and television, he said, has been delayed. So,
well,
it's just interesting.
It is interesting. The very first house that I bought back in 1999, I had to wait 6 weeks, was it 6 or 8 weeks for the sofa to arrive? And I ended up just sitting on a camping chair. that time, and that
Yeah.
was difficult. Like,
Yeah.
you've got no place to like properly chill out, so you're either sitting on the floor the whole time, or you're sitting on this camping chair, like a foldable camping chair.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
And to sit on that for a whole evening is not fun. Like, to try
No,
and
no.
sit on that and read or whatever is it's just, you know. And I did have a TV at that point, but I was sitting on this camping chair watching TV, thinking this is like some form of torture. So having the
Some form of
sofa
torture.
was really, really important actually for me, because at least you've got somewhere you can chill in the living room. So I would say
That's
sofa
interesting.
and bed are the two key things, and then obviously whatever kitchen appliances
Yeah.
and stuff you need. But
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if the kitchen needs completely redoing, it's got no oven and stuff like that, and then yeah, it's a bit.
yeah,
awkward,
then you're
but-
screwed. Then you're going to be living off takeaway.
Well, then
Which-
you're sort of more looking at like it needs a rebuild, so you wouldn't move in immediately, would you?
No, I wouldn't move into a place. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, that would be tough. You'd have to have everything lined up and teed up for when you do move in, if you were going to live there whilst having the kitchen done. But that would be pretty brutal. Yeah. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
It's been an adventure.
It's been an adventure that I'm hoping not to have to repeat in the not too distant future. So yeah, so that's my topical event. What I would like to do is go on to your topical event.
Let's go on to the last topical event that we're going to talk about, and the reason why this podcast is so much later. This might be what we end on, because I think we'll save celebrity call out caller perhaps, and
Okay.
And even final thoughts, because I think this is probably more about going to be our final thoughts. I think this is going to roll into some final thoughts, but it's also to just be a bit open and honest. And you know, we're a bit more time pressured today than normal. So the reason why this podcast is late is we were due to have a guest on for this one, and we're going to record just before I went to Iceland and talk about Iceland in November for the December release. But this person does Steph does taekwondo with me and stuff like that, and bits and pieces. Now, how do I tell this story? I've thought about what I want to say less than I would have liked, in the hope that I'd have some kind of spur of the moment idea. So I think I'm just going to plow onto it, and I'm going to keep it quite succinct. We had an instructor and someone that I kind of called a very dear friend, who, there's no other word for it, fittest man alive. Insanely, like, shredded all the time, looked great, really keen on his cycling, really keen on his mobility, really keen on just general health and fitness, didn't drink, anything like that. And I'm not going to reveal the cause in here because they haven't online. So basically he fell ill and passed away a couple of weeks ago. And now he was also the instructor for Steph. So obviously we didn't want to get Steph onto the podcast, and this has only happened like the week before. And also kind of it had torn like the taekwondo community quite hard, right? We're quite grieved. They did his funeral last week when I was in Iceland, and I'm gutted I wasn't able to be there. Just to kind of show the impact that he had on all of the communities that he ran. So he owned his own business that was really big into the charity sector, specifically like the air ambulance, a lot of stuff on the mine charity, loads of bits and pieces like that. They couldn't all fit in the crematorium. People were standing outside listening to speakers on the crematorium. They did a taekwondo guard of honor while they were there. And I had the privilege of kind of knowing this person. So a guy called Nick Evans. I actually went on. We had ironically a stag do in Barcelona for my coach and instructor, and he came along with as kind of, you know, having known my coach and instructor for over 30 years. And so got to spend some absolutely wonderful time in Barcelona. Obviously, he doesn't drink. His biggest risk was dying of dehydration in Spain, because we'd order the alcohol by the litre and he'd order a Coke, and he would give him a 133ml bottle, which is like this big. So, for the same price, that was the mental thing. Straight Spain's such a weird on their pricing system. But I wanted to use this opportunity in the podcast, and selfishly, that's one of the reasons why I kind of put the podcast, is to be able to, for me and Jerry to put our thoughts out there and to say things. And I know Jerry wants to say some stuff about somebody else as well. It's really weird, right? I haven't really, upset is the wrong term. It just feels strange to see somebody at the peak of their fitness that doesn't touch alcohol to succumb to an illness in that way, and not, and you get information, you think, yeah, but it's Mr. Evans, it's like, it's the fittest man alive, and then to get to the stage where they're turning off life supports and stuff like that, it feels weird, and it really made me think, because this was also happening all around my really stressful time around work, where I was like 1 a.m.s, and I remember getting to one of the 1 a.m.s and just sitting there and thinking, and I'm going to swear, and this one's going to stay in, but what the fuck am I doing, right? Why am I putting myself through the stress, right? And I said about, I don't spend enough time with my parents, I'm really bad at replying to friends and things like that, and I still am a little bit, and I want to change that, because it really throws you into some thought processes where you just need to tell the people that you love them more often, because there is absolutely no guarantees on what is going to happen next. It doesn't matter what you do well and what you don't do well, right? It doesn't matter how healthy you keep yourself fit and how or how unfit you are, whatever it is. You need to make sure that you are telling the people that you love them, because they might not be here tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's been such a shock to our community, and I'm absolutely inside. There's a part of me that, like, the way I described it, part of my soul had died. Like, the part of the soul, one of my a dear friend, somebody I looked up to. You look at him, you go, I want to be that fit, I want to be that mobile, I want to be able to do that. Right, somebody you admired. But not only that, like, if I asked him a question, he'd be like, yeah, sure, Dom, and he'd spend hours with me talking about different bits. And I'm 6'3" and like long and gangly, and he probably was sort of like in the 5'9", 5'10" era, right? So he's a little bit shorter and stockier than me, so it's different things, and he was willing to try and adapt things to find out what worked, like that. Those conversations, the conversations we had in Barcelona, those types of things, like it part of my soul died. And I think that, again, going back to that Garmin thing, Jerry, that's another motivation. It's like, I want to be like that, right? That's the best way that you can honor your friends as well, is to just be the kindest that you can be to your body, the fitter. For me, if I look after my body, if I get fit, if I eat well, if I do all those bits and pieces, it's the kindest thing I can do to my friends, to give me the opportunity to honor them, but also to tell them that I love them as much as possible until it gets weird. That's what somebody said. Tell your friends that you love them until it gets weird. And I don't want to. I really wanted to put a podcast out in November, right? There was part of me that was like, I'm not sure we're going to find a time. I'm not sure I can do this, especially pre-Iceland. I was still feeling quite weird about it. But I knew we wanted to do something. So I thought, well, I want to spend at least 5-10 minutes of the podcast and just explain, hey, this is why this feels a bit late and a little bit rushed. But also to just to remind you that nobody gives a fuck what you do nobody cares what my job title is at work. None of my friends do. None of them have a fucking clue what I do. I don't have a clue what half my friends do. I try and understand. I try and sympathize. But at the end of the day, my friends like me for my personality and who I am. I love my friends because of who they am and what they are. And it's just about being a little bit more kind of balanced, that knowing where you should be. And I'm not quite sure how I want to finish, but I think that's kind of a little bit what I want to say. I don't know what you I know you want to say some stuff as well, Jerry, about different bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's difficult. I could say so much, but you're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make any sense. It's not really logical. It just is what it is. You're here 1 minute, and then the next you're not. I lost a dear friend recently, but I kind of feel like I've lost too many people over the years. Starting in order of, when I was a teenager, lost Karen, then Charlie when we left uni, then Gary, who's my school friend when I was 30, and then Colin, recently Donna, and that's not even including the family members that I've lost. In particular, my uncle Joe, who's like a second father to me, and also my granddad, so my mum's dad, who I never really got to. Well, I got to spend loads of time with him and did get to know him when I was a kid, but then didn't see him for years. It's too long a story to go into, but it wasn't through any fault of my own and no fault of his own either. It just wasn't possible. And then he sadly passed away when I was 15. So it just, what do you say to all of that? It's, these are the people that were really, really close to me. And, there are other people that are no longer around that weren't as close to me. So you just think, actually, you know what? You've got to take the best out of a bad situation and just live your life. Just live your life and make the most of it and grab the opportunities for happiness wherever you can get them.
Yes. Opportunity was the really big thing that I said. And I put out 2 posts on my Instagram. I don't post there often, but if you want to see some, I'm not going to, by the way, when I edit this, I'm not going to put any Iceland pictures in. If you want to go see them, go to my Instagram. There's a link in the description, blah, 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 etc. Anyway, whatever. But so I put out the news. I said, this hurts. Like, not only was Mr. Evans a grand friend, he was an inspiration and a sensationally kind man. The time of day that he gave all people, all those with curiosity, was huge. The advice you gave, the times to share will never be forgotten. The continued journey we now make without you present will hurt. Rest in peace and thank you. It took me 4 hours to come up with those words, right? And then the next post is, it's interesting, right? You always have these people that are like, oh, everything happens for a reason. And honestly, that's the only time I was like, it's bullshit. Sometimes things are really, really shit and they should never happen. That is a fact, right? And it's I think it's is it a Star Trek quote where it's like, sometimes you could do all the right things and still lose. That is just life. And I like that kind of bit where you talk about opportunity, right? Iceland is a really good example for me as an opportunity. Right? It was an opportunity to go somewhere new and talk to my dad and do all those kinds of bits and pieces. But I also think that we take away our own opportunities, right? Where I overwork and burn myself out. That's the taking away of opportunities where I could be spending up with friends or, going out to parties or whatever it has to be. And I think, work, and it's the same, like work issues are just trivialized things that it should just be there. And, it's about just taking the opportunities that you can and going from that bit forward. But I don't want to end it like on too much of a somber note, right? I think it's important to be transparent and open and understand what's going on. I've had a great time on Iceland, right? It's really reset my brain. You've moved into a new house, right? You've got a bit more of a reset. You've now got a space that you can own, right? Despite the fact that it's, you're in a new house because of a bit of a shit situation, if you don't mind me saying, right? It's to a certain extent, some things, things happen. Sometimes they're really shit and shouldn't happen, but it's what the opportunities that we then could take from those, and kind of make our next steps forward in terms of what's next. Life still has to unfortunately go on, even if sometimes we don't want it to.
Yeah. And I just don't know what to say, really. Situations like this. What can you say? I definitely, I'm with you on the, shit like that does not happen for a reason. Jesus. Right. What the hell?
Yeah.
Shit like that.
So weird.
That is odd. Shit like that happens because it just happens and it's cruel.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody actually, and they said something funny. not funny as in haha, but ironic, which is, it's amazing when you think of all of the most amazing people that you know, and you think of the people that you've lost, and you think, yeah, they were amazing people, and they were. And I think of all the people that I've lost. So all those names that I mentioned, they were wonderful, wonderful people, and yeah, that's what I mean about it just doesn't follow logic. So, you know.
And as a very logical person, and I try and put logic in a lot of stuff, it's a good reminder that it doesn't always work.
No, and by that, what I mean is that you've got to just live the best life that you can, and you've got to try and just be yourself, enjoy it, enjoy the ride. You don't know how long you're going to be on the ride for. You know, I think probably, you know, my age, so the fact that I'm going to be 52 in 2 months' time, is making me realise this more and more. Right? So, you know, so when I mention, you know, Karen, when I mention Charlie, when I mention Gary, Colin, they never made it this far. So, you know, I thank my lucky stars and just think, okay, come on, what more can I do? How much longer am I here for? I don't know, but let's just try and enjoy it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's probably the best place to end the podcast. And
it's a good final thought.
It's where we're at,
one.
and I think it's good to be. There'll be, you know, to put it in some positive note, there'll be some other stuff that's going to happen. You know, there's some ways that we're going to honour him, which I will be revealing on the podcast probably won't be revealing before. I probably will be revealing after it's done.
Okay.
And I'm going to use this platform to sort of just chat about all the cool stuff that we do, and to really kind of honour and represent friends that we've lost and friends that we still have.
Yeah.
That's why we like our friends coming on the podcast.
Yes, 100%. Nice.
Jerry, this is your host.
It is.
You sound this out.
It is. So, no final thoughts. Those were our final thoughts. Dom, I'm glad you had an amazing time in Iceland. It does sound incredible. Thank you for talking us through that experience. Well done on the quiz. That was a good shout.
Hey.
And congratulations on your new Garmin watch.
Yay!
So that's it. That concludes this episode number 41, if I'm not mistaken, of the podcast. Number 41. Wow. On this sunny, beautiful Sunday, the 27th of October. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for listening. Thank you for following. Thank you for supporting. Please do not hesitate to let friends and family know about this podcast, because you know, it's lovely to get the feedback. It's lovely to have new people discover this as well, of which there was one person I spoke to the week before last that said, I didn't realise, and then they started listening to it, and so now they're catching up. They said, this is fantastic. So I hope you don't mind, but I was listening to it whilst tidying up the house, and I said, yeah, some people do it whilst they're gardening, some people do it on the commute. It's fine. It's all good. So just hit like and subscribe. Sound like such an influencer. It's ridiculous. Exactly. I could just taste the bile. Anyway, thank you again for all your support. Take care, everybody. We love you all, and we look forward to seeing you on episode number 42.
Cheerio, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye.